Just a quick review of some of the things we talked about last night in case people need to go back and try to do these things again. Here's where we were. We've got shape files for all census tracts in a county that have been brought into our map. You got that shape file, the rectangles, the blobs from the Tigerland file website. Things to be careful about, make sure you're in the right generation of geographies. All the census tracts from 2010 to 2019, any file you download of census tracts between 2010 and 2019, this holds for shape files, this holds for data. We'll be talking about the same census tracts. If you look older than that, so pull 2000 data, or if you look newer than that, pull 2020 data or 2020 shape files. The boundaries will likely switch and the GeoIDs in some cases will switch, and it will confuse your map to no end. So make sure you're sticking with the right generation of data, and the generation of data matches the generation of shape files. So you got your shape files of all census tracts in a county. You went to the census and you downloaded some data for all census tracts in that same county. And the map that's up here is just the median value. Medians are great ways to just focus on practicing the steps in this process without having to do a lot of calculations and summarizing in Excel, just because a median value is sort of everything you need to know in one column. But you can always get fancier after that. And so what I'm going to do right here, I'm just going to right click for a second, open up the attribute table, just as a reminder. In order to bring in your data, to join your data with the shapefile, join is the tool that you use. And there are other videos that walk through this whole process. But just as a reminder, the shapefile comes with this column right here. And any table you make that has this same column in it can be joined into your map. And so that's why we did some cleanup in Excel so that the data you get from the census, or maybe you download data from somewhere else entirely. Maybe somewhere in Philadelphia is keeping track of information. And so long as their tables have this column, it's going to be able to talk to your map. Maybe, any other data source that you're dealing with is thinking about health indicators based on census tract. Any information you're pulling from Policy Map or from Opportunity Atlas is going to have this column in it, or one that's close to it that you can use the tricks that we were playing around with in Excel to get your column to be the exact same format as this one. This might look like a number, but it is a text, things to remember. If you're dealing with a state at the beginning of the alphabet, your state, string of numbers probably starts with a 0. And so if these are the kinds of issues that if you try and run through these steps and it doesn't work, first of all, definitely reach out to me. But those are some troubleshooting things to definitely look out for. The computer can only bring in or join in data that you've got that has numbers, strings of numbers that look exactly like these guys, because that's how it knows what to link up to what else. And so once you join that, it works. If you scroll across on your attribute table, move over to the edge, the first right up to here is just sort of the information that's already included in the shapefile. But now starting here, this is what had been my Excel table. I joined it in so long as I had this column here that I got to format exactly like the shapefiles GeoID column. It's a text field and it all lines up, and I can tell everything worked because all of these cells are filled up with data. There's my median value right there. And as soon as I know that it's in the attribute table, anything in the attribute table can be seen visually on your map. So these different colors reflect the different levels of median income, and here they are right here. So the challenge now is, all right, well, now I've got all those census tracts in the county. I really want to zoom in and just look at Rochester. The people who I am preparing this map for are, Rochester city officials. As much as they enjoy looking at data for the suburban areas around the city, they really don't care. They want to know what's going on in the city of Rochester. That's all they want to know. And so the way we're going to get just to the city of Rochester, I don't have to go back to the census to go track by track to only download data for the census tracts that are in the city. I know I have all the census tracts that are in the city already in my map. All I want to do is get rid of the stuff that's around the city. And so we can do that with the selection tool, which these guys are right up here. We're going to select by a location. I'm going to tell it, listen, I just want the census tracts that are within the city of Rochester. And so the way that the map's going to be able to help me do that is it needs to know what census tracts I'm curious about. And it also needs to know where Rochester is in the world. And so this, I'm going to flash it on and off so you see them. This is another shapefile. I went back to the Tigerline website. Instead of downloading a shapefile of census tracts, I downloaded a shapefile. These are places. You could have downloaded zip codes. You could have downloaded states, counties. You could have downloaded school districts and said, listen, I just want the census tracts that are within this school district or within this zip code. But in order to give the mapping software that instruction, the map needs to know what geography you're talking about. It needs to have that geography in the same, map that you're dealing with. And so I brought all these guys in. For places, the shapefile that spits out for you is for all the places in a state, is sort of as specific as you can get. And so you can see this is way more places than I care about. I'm going to click this off just so we can look at the places just on their own. Here's a situation where I know what is Rochester. And so I can switch my cursor over to this select tool. You'll see that now my cursor looks a little bit different. Anything I click on, that's all I need to do to select. If I want to select a couple things at a time, maybe I want Rochester and these sort of inner ring suburbs. If I hold down the shift key, I can select a bunch at a time. If that's a mistake, I actually don't want to do that. I can clear and I can start again. Or anytime I click anywhere else, it's going to unselect the last thing I selected. So here's one. I know where Rochester is. That's an easy way for me to identify it. If I'm looking for a specific one of these little municipalities, I've never been to Rochester, I have no idea where it is. If you open up this attribute table, one of the things you see in here are all the names of all these places. If you click on the top of these columns, I just right click to bring up this menu. You can sort these in whatever order you want. Rochester's towards the end of the alphabet. Maybe we'll sort in descending order. And I can scroll through and find it on my list if I wanted to. If I click on the side here, that's the same. I've effectively selected. Anytime you see anything highlighted in that light blue color, it's been selected. But I actually don't want West Sayville. That's not the place I care about. I care about Rochester. So since I know where it is, I'm going to use this tool right here. So here's my place shapefile. This is the file that I've just selected a blob within. Right click. There's this selection expanded menu that's part of this greatest hits menu that pops up when you right click on anything. And you can see all these different choices. Either I can zoom into it. I can, select everything in this layer. I can, play around with any of these, but this is the one that I want right here. I want just Rochester. And it doesn't look like I've done anything. But if I click off of this one for a sec, you'll see now I just have the geography I care about. And so if I click on this one slow, I can change the name of it, City of Rochester. And so I'll remember what it is that I'm talking about. Right click if I want to come in closer, you can zoom. Boop, and there we are. All right. So now this is helpful. At least I've got just my Rochester boundary, which is helpful to see on this map. At least my Rochester officials can see where the city starts and stops. But now that I have a shapefile that's this geography that I care most about, I can use this to winnow down the census tracts that I've got. So I'm going to come over here, select by location. Selecting by attribute, again, keep in mind that the map can do this for you. Say I wanted to only select those census tracts that have median values below $80,000. I can either click on all of these yellow census tracts, or I can tell the map, hey, select by this attribute, select any census tract that has a median value below $80,000. I just want to look at those because maybe I'm curious to see how that subset of census tracts overlaps with brownfield sites. Who knows how you might be able to answer that question that you have or dig through your analysis with that kind of tool. So that's one of the things it can do. We're going to go by location. And so here's what it's setting up for you. Anytime you're not sure what on earth you're looking at, you can hover over one of these eye information bubbles and information pops up and tries to help you walk through this. So what we're going to do is, so here's the features that will be evaluated against the selecting feature is kind of ArcGIS speak for what things do you want to select? I want to select these guys, my census tracts right here. Maybe I want to select a whole bunch of census tracts. I can pick a whole bunch of things. So here's my census tracts. There's the median value one. Maybe I also want to subtract that second set. You can do as many of these as you want, because here I want to be able to call out these guys too. So these are the things that I want to select. And how I'm going to know which of these to select is this one right here, the selecting feature. And again, if you hover over this, in its speak, it's going to say this: features of the input feature parameter that will be selected based on their relationship. Again, they try and be helpful. It's not super clear. All that this one is saying is that here are the things I want to select, and map, you're going to decide which of these to select based on this one. So based on the city of Rochester. So we're selecting census tracts based on where they are relative to the city of Rochester. And the relative to can look a whole bunch of different ways. That's this drop down right here. Maybe I want all census tracts within a distance of something. Maybe I want all the census tracts that are within a quarter mile of a school or a brownfield, or a bank or a library. Maybe I want census tracts that contain those things, not that are nearby, but where are the census tracts that have their own library somewhere within them, or where the schools are located. For situations like this, where I'm trying to select one blob that's a smaller part of a bigger blob, I've found that the easiest way to do it is to pick those things that have their center in that bigger geography. So I want any of these census tracts that have their center in the city of Rochester. And the reason I say that is you can kind of see there's some of these over here where the census tract is kind of both inside of Rochester and outside of Rochester. And it's true of a couple of these things. And the way that the map is going to decide which to include in this selection are the ones that are mostly in Rochester. And that's exactly what I want. If I picked intersect, then any of these census tracts right here, you see this orange rectangle, that's really the only thing it shares with Rochester is this border. But for all intents and purposes, this entire neighborhood is outside the city. If I picked intersect, which is the first item on this list, a census tract like this one would be selected, because technically it does intersect. It's just the border, but it intersects it. And so this is it. This is all I have to do. Select these because of how they relate to this one. And here's the way in which I care about that relationship. They have their center in. But think about this tool. Give me the census tracts that have a grocery store. Give me everything within a half mile of a brownfield site. Any way you want to think about the relationship of two different shape files, you have the ability to use this tool to select, use one to select the other. So I'm going to hit OK. And again, anytime you see this blue, you know that things have been selected. They've been selected. If you go back here, right click, selection. One of the, again, just like we did with the city of Rochester, is make layer from selected feature. You can see you're reusing these tools again and again and again to do slightly different things, but think of how many questions or challenges you can answer with this same tool. Again, doesn't look like I've done anything, but in fact, we have, and here are these. And so, city of Rochester, census tracts. And now I have my census tracts, and I can go into symbology. Maybe I want to change these categories, because what is low, medium, and high in Rochester is different than what's low, medium, and high across the county. I can, again, repeating that same symbology step, does it the same way, but now I'm zoomed in on just a few. And so for every indicator that you look at countywide, you want to look at that indicator just for a smaller geography, like a city within it, or if you have a city and you just want to look at a zip code within a bigger city. You can do that too. You notice I did not have to go back to the census website. I did not have to rejoin my table. I did not have to reformat any of the Excel side of things. All of that information came right from here to here. And so the only real thing I had to do for my Rochester, rather than my Monroe County map, was this selection tool. And then I'm good to go.